morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? I'll be joined by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, in just a couple of minutes. Good to have everybody with us. And a hectic week as usual here, but we've survived it. At least if we survive one more day, we have. I restarted my computer, so I hope it's not defaulting to the right internet connection, but hopefully we'll have no problems this morning. So welcome everybody, Northeast Streaming Sports on Let's Talk Sports, obviously Sideline Sports as well. If you end up seeing this, and obviously you can catch us later, and please like and follow the show and send it to your friends. Go to the invite button, invite every friend you have on Facebook, YouTube. You can certainly invite people as well. Go to their YouTube feed and our Twitter feed and like and share the buttons there if you would. Today we're going to get into some talk about the NBA finals. The Heat got back in it in game 2, and obviously the Nuggets took control back with a victory in Miami the other night. We'll talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little about the Kyrie Lebron rumored partnership, and should they be taking over the NBA playoffs? This smacks of like A-Rod when he signed a contract during the World Series when he was with the Yankees. We'll talk a little about some baseball. We'll talk Jacob deGrom. It's just an injury waiting to happen. He'll be out for the next probably year and a half, and always one dumb owner. Maybe I didn't put this in our rundown, but maybe Jimmy G and the Raiders a little bit. And I want to do a little something we don't normally talk about, which is soccer, which I know the Mad New Yorker has certainly a very good knowledge of. And Lionel Messi, I want to talk about the conversation about him joining MLS and the Miami team and potentially becoming an owner himself. So we'll get into all that and more with Mr. Carlos Chavez, the Mad New Yorker. Good morning, Carlos.
Morning, everybody. How you guys doing today? Keith, good morning. How's the apocalypse happening over there in your neck of the woods?
We're down to the air quality is below triple digits for the first time in a week, almost a week. It's only 27 today, so it's fairly normal, I think. So not where you guys are. It's still a little maybe it's better today. I was surprised the Yankees played a doubleheader yesterday, actually.
I'm not sure what was going on there in that decision, but, at the end of the day, if you got a scheduled game and it's clear as day, I guess you play, right?
Well, I mean, one of the factors was the White Sox were not back in town again. This is their only trip to New York, so that did play into the decision. And I don't think if it was like it was Wednesday, those were some scary photos coming out of the city, man.
I felt like the end of days for sure as far as atmosphere, and that didn't really derail people from smoking cigarettes or enjoying their little,
Well, that's a little
little cigarette break. And I thought it was ridiculous when I was out there trying to pick up my child that there's people still smoking cigarettes with all that stuff in the air.
I guess if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, a little bit of
one extra pack won't help, right? That was the average. The average was if you were out long enough, you were smoking almost a whole pack a day.
Yeah, I kept even here. I just stayed inside pretty much, out to the car to somewhere. That's about it.
I worked at I was working in and out of a elementary school, and they have an exhaust that kind of goes through from the roof, and that you could smell it in the school. And it was, but the school did a good job. They had air, they had different types of air control going on in there as far as like having filter machines and things like that running in different areas. So they did a good job, but it was
good.
It was tough. It was tough on everybody around here.
Hopefully it'll be better today. And I think even down there after today, I think it's going to clear up fairly well. I hope so. No, and we have no major after effects, hopefully, from this as well.
No, we'll see a lawsuit somewhere or another. If you were in this area in this time frame.
Listen, it's the country we live in. This is a very litigious society, and we sue over everything. So, whatever. Let's jump in with let's start with the NBA playoffs because
what a game, right?
It was a great game the other night. I mean, well, this is a great game in game 2 for the Heat, getting back in it. I did not think they had any chance to win a game in Denver. And they pull out a game to really make it a series. And then surprisingly, the Nuggets take control as soon as they hit the road to take that 2-1 advantage. And to me, look at the Heat and even Jimmy Butler said they had a bit of low energy again on game 3. This is a few times this has happened to the Heat during the course of the playoffs.
I think the coaching, Spoelstra did a great job in game 2. I think it helped their team staying in competition and stay with them, doing well. But those two guys, Adebayo and Butler, they can't score 20 points. They have to score more, and they got away with it on Tuesday for sure. You see that wasn't going to be enough for them in game 3. So Spoelstra could do what he wants and what he can, but your team has to produce at the end of the day. You got to go out in the basketball court and you got to turn it up more than one notch. You got to turn it up to win. So
agreed. Good morning, Alan. And by the way, maybe we'll stick around. We'll address that question. I don't have it on my rundown today, but we'll address that question maybe real quick after this segment.
Good morning, Alan.
And good morning, Tanner. Good to have you here. I think the Heat are worn out too. That's a good.
Well, I mean, you guys have to understand that these are also guys who were the Heat aren't paying much for these players. These guys are playing out of their will and out of their hearts, and the potential level for these guys. All of them were not drafted. Most of the guys were not drafted, and the expectation they're playing with the chip on their shoulder. So, but you can only run on that so much. That can only fuel you up so much. The coaching can only help you so much. If you compare both rosters, you compare how they've been playing all season long, you would see that Denver is just on another level compared to Miami. And that was one of the reasons I would have rather watched Boston play Denver, because they had, at least on the roster they had potential of being a balanced team, even though they didn't end up doing that during the playoffs and as you can tell, they're not in the championship. So I didn't really want to see this Heat championship type of run. They ended up doing it. Congrats to them, kudos to them. But I'm not sure if it's they're running out of gas. I'm just sure they're out of luck, right?
Well, I think it's partly out of gas. They played, some very physical series, and
but there's games where Butler didn't even show up. He doesn't even play like more. He might play 40 minutes, but he's playing 20 minutes if you look at the stat sheet. And that can't be like that. So that's why I feel like he's just an all-star, not really a superstar.
Well, I think we're, again, surprisingly enough, on the same page there. I think he's a great player who plays like a superstar sometimes, but he doesn't, superstars bring it most every night. And he has too many nights where he doesn't. And on top of all that, and again, Spoelstra is a great coach. I've said that through this whole series. I mean, they wouldn't be here if Eric Spoelstra wasn't their coach. They would not. I have no doubt they would not have come nearly this far. But they just don't have an answer for Jokic or Murray in my mind. They don't have they don't have the bodies to go at those guys for 48 minutes a night.
Well, and the thing is too is the Miami roster with Duncan Robinson, they have Vincent, they have Russo. They got these guys that are sometimes show up. They don't do it consistently. And Martin was one player that was doing it consistently in the last series against Boston, but he hasn't played like he's played in Boston in this series at all. So, and that's the thing when you're depending on other players and you don't have your superstars. And I believe, and I don't think anybody's talking about Adebayo. Adebayo is probably the superstar of the Miami Heat. I mean, he's been consistent, and when he doesn't shoot well, he at least is making those assists. He's getting those blocks. He's doing it on the defensive end. So he should be the one who's be getting all the credit about being a superstar, because Butler hasn't turned it up since they started the series yet.
I think Adebayo's played well as well, but to my point, he cannot play Jokic one-on-one.
Well, he doesn't have to. He won't either. He's not the main guy running at Jokic. If you see that, Spoelstra smart. He's not having him, up with Jokic, because the thing with Jokic is they're just putting different people on him, so that way Adebayo can play a better game, and they're giving Adebayo all the time and all the opportunity to score. But so that's a smart by Malone, right? He's allowing Adebayo to do what he needs to do.
That's Michael Malone. Don't forget, not
Right.
Mike Malone. Mike, you know, I like this guy as a coach. I really do. But it's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Impetuous to say, stop calling me Mike. Call me Michael. I mean, good grief. Get a grip.
I guess if he's after this championship, then I'll call him Michael.
We've been calling him Mike for 15 years, but now that he's in the NBA Finals, I got to call him Michael.
No, I'll call him after he wins. How about that? After he earned it.
Kill me. Alan talks about he thinks they're gas for sure. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. They did. You got to remember they played in the play-in games.
Mm-hmm.
They had 6 games against Milwaukee. They had 6 tough games against New York and 6 tough games against Boston. A lot of physical basketball for today's game. Some of these games remind me of the 90s.
But again, those are things that you got to put behind you if you're and Spoelstra knows that he don't have a big 3 anymore. He doesn't. He doesn't have like the mentality that he had before, but they have other guys with the hunger mentality, which is what they're trying to, run off of. They're making shirts talking about culture. Well, you can't just be culture. You got to play the game. At the end of the day, you have to be on the court and you have to produce. And if you're the guy on the court for 40 minutes and you're only getting 20 points, man, you're not this. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the Knicks talking about Randall and how he's such a great player. They're giving him 40 minutes, but he's barely reaching 20 points. Like, you can't do that. If you're playing 40 minutes, man, you got to give me 40 minutes and you got to give me 25 plus 30 points. It doesn't matter who's guarding you because you're on that court for 40 minutes and you got to play ball or you got to play out.
Randall's a very good player. He's a lot like Butler. There's too many nights that, especially in big games where he just doesn't quite show up.
Yeah, but you don't pay contracts because they're going to be good players. You pay contracts because you want them to play their best every single night. And now, granted, I know it's basketball. It's tough to do that, but other players have made their bread and butter being huge contracts and playing day in, day out. And yeah, it was back, before the 2000s, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's basketball, right?
Right. I didn't get a chance to say hi to my dad, Bob.
Good morning, Mr.
I'm Jeanette. Good morning. Good to have you with us. What else in this series? So again, Miami gets that win in Denver, which does still put a little different spin on it. But I don't know. Maybe they steal another game in Miami, and it will go 6 games. But this is still Denver's series to lose. They can only lose this if they lose it.
So
give it away.
The key factor was that they were able to shut Murray out in the second game, and he was also not playing smart basketball in the second half of that game. And when he came out in the third game, he was consistent all 4 quarters, right? Because the second game he was really good in just 1 quarter. So Murray is, I think he's starting to get it, which is good for him.
Do you think Murray's as good in a different system without Jokic to play off of? You think he's as good if he's playing with the Knicks? You think he's?
I believe that Jokic, the way Jokic plays, he makes everybody better.
Yeah, I agree.
So
how do we get him to New York?
Who, Jokic?
That'll never happen. I'm just
no, I don't. No, that's not. If he was a championship, forget it. He's not ever going to be in New York.
Why is every European guy that's ever come to the Knicks stinks? Everyone.
Well,
Porzingis was okay for a while till he got hurt, but
yeah, I mean, they've been talking about bringing him back, and I hope not.
No, I don't understand that. Why would we do that?
But I think for Murray, it's something that he's trying to do on his own, even though Jokic is there. Like when Jokic is not on the court, you could see he's putting himself out there and pushing the ball. And I think sometimes he needs to kind of calm it down though. Like he doesn't have to touch the ball, bringing it up the court all the time. He just has to make sure he gets the ball in his hands after the ball passes the half court line. Yeah,
this Denver team reminds me a little bit of the Milwaukee team that won a couple of years ago because they all know their roles, right? Mm-hmm. And Jokic is better than Giannis. Sorry, Giannis is a great player. He is a superstar. Don't get me wrong. Jokic's better because he makes everybody around him better, as we talked about. Yeah. And I don't think Giannis does that as much.
No, Giannis is more like he puts everything on his shoulders, and he's the one that's going to make the points and make the game.
But they've got their guys, and they all know their roles, and they play them perfectly. So I like the way this team is put together, and now it's a matter of whether you can keep it together. That's the problem in the NBA.
And I think one of the things, the toughest. Again, I said it before on the show too, and I talked to Robert about it on Sports Quiz. Denver has a lot of length. Like you look at them, and they look like the bigger team just by this when they start on the ball in the tip off. Like they look like the taller team, the longer team, and that you guys talk about the basketball players being tired. I think that's what's like a big effect on the Heat. They got to play guys that are like a few inches taller than them. It's not a big deal until you have to actually do it, and these guys are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? So when these guys who are around around Jokic and Murray, who are pretty good, and they're a little bit better than the roster across from them, and the Heat who are undrafted players. Not to say that means a lot, but you could tell that their team has a little bit more potential than the team in Miami. You can see it on the court when they play. And that's one of the reasons why I was like hoping that we didn't see this matchup, but we're seeing it. And Spoelstra's doing what he's trying. He's doing his best. And, Adebayo's doing his best. Butler needs to start to try to do his best.
Well, I don't think Jimmy's not trying to do well, but he's not a young guy anymore either. And he's not a guy who can carry a team for 40 minutes a night.
Then the thing is, and then they don't crown him, right?
Right.
Like you crowning him and you tell and the media is making him out to be this, Jimmy buckets and all this, but look, he's just like any other basketball player. And there's a tipping point. And
Jimmy, he's not like any other basketball player. He's a great basketball player, and he's had a great career. And part of me wants to see Jimmy Butler win a championship, but it's not happening, and it may not happen unless he goes second fiddle.
Here's the thing. I've even talked to Robert about this. If you had Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, who would you pick?
Oh, Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah.
Yeah. So Leonard and Kawhi Leonard is like in the what top 10 players?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Butler at his peak, I would probably take over Kawhi Leonard.
Jimmy Butler got his problem was that he started with Tibbs and he went to a worse coach. And now he's back to a great coach who allows him to be Jimmy Butler. None of the trajectory that Jimmy Butler's been through has actually been his fault as far as what happens on the basketball court. Because these guys try to put him in some kind of scheme, and then they're coaching, ideas, and that wasn't going to work for Jimmy Butler. Spoelstra is the best thing that's happened to Jimmy Butler.
Oh, I agree. And they've had their issues. So, but I think Jimmy Butler's better for playing, as you just said, as playing for Spoelstra, because he's challenged him where other guys did not, I think. And
I think the challenge is go out there and do your best, be the best basketball player, instead of go out there and make sure that you're running this scheme, right, with point guards that weren't necessarily running the scheme, and there was like a lot of dysfunction. And then the first coach he had was just go out there and play 45 minutes and, sweat, blood, and tears. And it's like, well, we're not scoring any points, but you want us to play defense.
I wonder who you're talking about.
Yeah,
there.
I wonder who that is.
I wonder if that's knocking my favorite coach again.
Again, not a bad coach. You should just coach in a different league. That's all.
Listen, before we leave the NBA, I got to talk about Kyrie. Kyrie talked about, and first of all, I want to talk about the timing. Kyrie, again, all about Kyrie, wants to play with LeBron, wants to recruit him to Dallas. We don't know if Dallas wants Kyrie back yet, but he's going to recruit LeBron to Dallas. Number one thing is, shouldn't he just shut up and let the NBA have their moment here? This is the NBA's crowning jewel, the NBA championship, and we got him talking about him and LeBron's future. I don't know if I'm blaming LeBron here because I don't think LeBron's really spoken up a lot about this. It's mostly Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Kyrie and that whole thing in Dallas is amazing to me because they were on a trajectory to like being one of the best teams in the West, and then they go sideways and get a player like Kyrie. You have Luka.
And don't forget they tanked the end of the season.
Yeah, I know. They have Luka, and Luka's one of those guys that has just proven to you that with two predominant point guards that he's not going to be able to play with. Mm-hmm. So don't bring in another point guard, right? But because you're going to make him run a point/forward position, he needs the ball in his hands, right?
Who's the second one you're talking about?
As far as what?
he couldn't play with. His point guard he couldn't talk about.
Brunson?
He played with Brunson fine. They played good together. He just
they didn't. No, they didn't. If they would have played good together, they would have been in a championship, and they only lasted in the playoffs. So
they played pretty well together, I thought.
I don't think so. I think those two kind of like almost like balance themselves out. You could tell that because Brunson was scoring way more points.
Well, yes.
When Luka was in and out of the lineup. So, and when Luka got hurt, Brunson was able to not only handle the team but score more than Luka was scoring.
Yeah.
So they didn't really if Brunson would have held the ball more as a point guard, Luka would have had more points, and maybe Brunson would have had more points.
So do we blame this on Luka or we blame this on Kyrie or Jason Kidd?
I blame this on ownership for not looking at the player that they have and trying to put other players, trying to build a big three like all the other teams where that's something that might not work out, So you have Luka. What I would do is I would get younger players around him, and if you can't get younger players around him and have him as a point guard / forward, then but don't go older and bring somebody that's not going to help your team, because it's a long season. Or you get rid of Luka and you make your team young and you build from the beginning. So you have a few options as a Dallas team, but Luka's I think Luka would, to be honest with you, would benefit somewhere else because of the way the ownership is trying to win a championship but not trying to build a team.
Yeah. So I mean, look if you're LeBron, do you want to play with Kyrie again?
No, not at all. You've been there, done that.
It was dysfunctional then. They were lucky they won that championship. I mean, Kyrie had a lot to do with it. I don't say he didn't, but they didn't have a great relationship in Cleveland. And Kyrie says he's grown up. I haven't seen a lot of evidence of it.
Well, there's a lot on Kyrie that because of the media and the things that, they shine light on. I'm sure he's matured, with his age. Him just wanting to play with LeBron is just an idea out there that he's floating out there. But, at the end of the day, the best thing that Kyrie could do is just play basketball and focus on trying to get to a playoff, no matter what team he's on. And until he does that, the media is not going to stop. And that's the problem.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop. I mean, the guy shows me no reason to give him the benefit of the doubt ever.
Right now, because he's also starting to show his age, you're getting like little spurts of Kyrie when he feels like playing, and when he has great games, you're getting little spurts instead of getting consistency of what you were getting, when he was a little bit younger and when on the different teams that he played. So he's not a bad player, but he's making himself out to be, not a good player. So,
all right. So let's just play devil's advocate for a second and say that LeBron and Kyrie do hook up next year. Where's it? Where? First of all, we talked about why we don't know that they should. But if it happens, where should they do it? Would it be in Dallas? Because listen, Kyrie's a free agent. We don't know.
If the hookup happens, it'll definitely be in LA. Because I don't think that Dallas is willing to put out a contract, that's gonna go back and hurt that team, right? Especially when they have Luka, that they're gonna probably have to re-up in the next few seasons. So, and
is LeBron's retirement talk just a smokescreen, you think?
I think it's just a possibility. He's keeping open until the beginning of next year. Like
he's going to be on 1-year deals until Bronny comes out of college. We know that because he's going to want to go wherever Bronny ends up.
And then what team will be able to afford that 1-year deal?
Well, the team that drafts him will have to figure out a way to do it because they're probably coming as a package deal.
You think he'll go to Cleveland?
And you know what though? But maybe LeBron would play for, I don't know, whatever the player, the veteran exemption is, or whatever we call it these days. Maybe he'd play for, because what's he making? $56 million next year, I think, or something like that.
Do you think that money is not going to be an issue for him as far as being able to play with?
No, I think if he wants to play a year or 2 years with Bronny, the money's. He's going to be a billionaire. How much money does he need? So I don't think that'll be a factor if he wants to make that.
I mean, he still has to recuperate from what's happening now, and what if it's something he can't go and do again? Maybe he'll be a coach or assistant coach or something. So
Yeah.
And be with Bronny. Still be with Bronny. So
Let's say good morning to Robert Butler.
Morning, Robert.
Oops, great show. Check out Robert's show nightly at 8 o'clock, I believe, Eastern time. He does a great job on all the same channels we are on. Keep raking Brown. Everybody keeps raking Bronny. Listen, back to Dallas for 1 second. Didn't they bring in a veteran coach to sit on that bench this week? It wasn't Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell signed somewhere. Was it Dallas? I can't remember who the coach was. They brought in.
What I heard the other day was them probably thinking about bringing Draymond in there, and I'm like, what?
No, I'm talking about an assistant coach they brought in, and I was thinking to myself, Jason Kidd better watch his back because this is a veteran NBA head coach. Who the heck was it? Can I find it here? Let me see if I can find it quick.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too because I don't remember. It's been a long week though.
Yeah, listen, I hear things that I didn't actually hear these days. So let me just look at their page on ESPN quick. I thought they brought in.
What, Jeff Van Gundy? They talking about Jeff Van Gundy? Let's see here.
Yes, actually, that's what it was. I think they were in discussions to bring him in as assistant coach. Yes, it hasn't happened yet. Now, just to talk about that for a second, if that happens, which I don't think it will, Jeff Van Gundy's making a bunch of money as a commentator, and if he wants to get back into head coaching, then maybe he makes this move. But if that happens, and I'm Jason Kidd, I gotta be watching my back every second, don't I?
Yeah, didn't Jeff Van Gundy try to make a comeback with his brother?
No, he didn't. I think Stan coached with Jeff in Houston for a little bit when he was trying to reinvigorate his career.
I mean, I love Jeff Van Gundy as far as his basketball mind.
I guess it is Sam Cassell, according to Robert. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Even Sam, I don't know if these guys will help or hurt Jason Kidd.
No. I think I'm sorry, I missed one. He may be saying Boston brought in Sam Cassell. So
yeah, Boston. Yeah, no, I mean, but
Van Gundy was talking about coming back as an assistant somewhere, and it might have been Dallas. We'll look. We'll keep an eye on that. Anyway,
yeah, but I don't. The way that things are going, basketball has been changing for a while, and the way Van Gundy's coach both the brothers, I don't think it will help these guys at all.
Stan Van Gundy's not coaching again. I can tell you that.
I don't think he's coming back either. So but from their school of thought and the way that they coached before, I don't think it would help NBA players today.
Jeff Van Gundy, I would think would have a lot of trouble with today's game.
Yeah, I think these guys want to come back coaching. I think the G League or coaching one of the Power 5 teams would probably be a better fit for them, to be honest. Because you're talking about these guys going into straight fundamentals and straight defensive tactics and things that the NBA doesn't use as much today. So
agreed. Let's switch sports for a bit and go over to baseball, where a lot of weird stuff going on.
So we mentioned this before, right? We talked about Jacob deGrom, and I said it's okay to let him go. He didn't really play much last year. This is what was going to happen eventually, right?
Yes, I said this, and again, Alan. Oh, Alan. But by the way, before we do this, Alan, if you're still with us, I wanted to address one thing before I jumped onto this. I'm sorry. Let's back up 1 second. How come I can't get to my comments? Alan had asked real quick because I didn't have this on our thing. We'll talk about this for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Minnesota released Dalvin Cook the other day, as we all know, and he wants to know if there's a chance he ends up in New York. I don't know if he means the Jets or the Giants, but I'm going to say no, because I don't think either one of them's got the salary cap to bring this guy in for what it'll cost him.
And then what does he have left in the tank is a big question for anybody who's willing to sign him.
And, it's been a soap opera there a bit with Minnesota here recently. So I'm going to say this doesn't happen. Will Dalvin Cook end up somewhere? Yes, because somebody's going to be desperate for a running back. But I don't think either New York team really is, assuming Hall comes back for the Jets.
I feel like if you pick him up, it'd be like another Le'Veon Bell type of situation where you're hoping to get what was, what transpired before, and you get something else. And that's because the way these running backs are used in today's game, so the shelf life isn't isn't that long.
And we'll dive into that a little bit more Sunday morning, probably, Alan. And Alan, if you're still with us, we're going to talk about your Rangers. And Alan and I had let me just give you a little backstory. So, listen, I said all along this was a dumb signing for the Rangers. And again, in my conversation with Alan, he was talking about how the Rangers have done well without him. Well, yes, they have. And I'm not taking anything away from them. They got the second best record in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
They pitched very well. The fact remains, this was a bad signing from the beginning. This was going to happen.
Right.
And now he's out probably for the next year and a half, I would say. If he comes back late, like next season, it would be a plus, if at all. And this money will come back. This guaranteed money, by the way, all of it's guaranteed, will come back and hurt this team somewhere because they are not the Yankees or the Mets. They can't just keep going over the luxury tax.
Right.
So this will be a problem. And again, deGrom, unfortunately, when he's on, he's the best pitcher in baseball. When he's healthy, he's the best pitcher in baseball.
Right.
I have no question about that. But it isn't about that. If I was going to sign him, it would have been just a 1 year make good deal, or 2 years, and with some incentives for how much you can actually contribute.
So do you believe that if he would have pitched 20 games last season, he would have been pitching today without having to have this issue? Because that's the conversation we were having about.
No,
let them pitch, and that's not.
But again, I'm not saying you can just let guys pitch now when they have not done it their entire career. I'm talking when I talk about this situation, and this is a great example of it to me. They baby these guys so much from the time they're signed, even back into college. They limit innings. They don't throw between starts. The things that made pitchers strong and able to pitch complete games until the money got too big, and then you didn't want to take a chance. And the exact opposite is happening. They're trying to protect these guys, and they're hurting them because they don't throw enough. And deGrom's, I think, a great example of that. Because once you get to the majors and you start getting hurt, you can't throw more now. You've already set the pattern, and then you get hurt.
One of the things with deGrom is that he was a shortstop, so he didn't start pitching until college.
Good point.
So he had to develop his pitches. He had to develop his everything in college. He had 4 years in college, and then when he got drafted, he was in the minors for 2 or 3 years maybe 4 years before they brought him.
He was in his mid-20s before he got to the majors, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So now he's 35, 30, 34, 35.
Close enough.
Yeah. So he's not. And if he comes back, he's got maybe 2-3 more seasons after Tommy John, maybe.
I don't know.
He's a guy that is all about velocity. He does not pitch slow pitches at all. He's all about making sure he hits marks because he has control, and he knows he has control, but he's all about velocity.
Agreed. And you say when he comes back, Tommy, this is his second Tommy John surgery, by the way.
Yeah.
At 35, when he comes back, he's going to be at least 36, I'm going to say. Because, again, he probably will not pitch next season. I'd be shocked if he did. And if he does, it'll be, very limited out of the bullpen or whatever.
Will the Rangers keep him on the roster for 3 years to see him pitch in 2.5 years?
You're going to eat the money? How can they afford to eat the money?
I got insurance. I'm sure they got that insured, by the way, knowing that he was problematic anyways.
Let me let Alan speak up here, because if I'm being honest, I blame New York.
He barely pitched in New York, man. You should have seen his last 3 seasons.
Ran him into the ground, which he's not. Listen, they done run him into the ground. That's my problem. My problem is they don't pitch these guys enough. Now Santana, again, Harvey, they babied. You're talking about all the guys that I'm talking about that have had arm problems because they babied them all through their development years, didn't let them pitch. They don't pitch between starts. They just don't throw enough. They don't build up the arm strength to be able to pitch 200 innings a year. Santana's a little bit different story. Santana pitched a lot of innings because he was a workhorse, and everybody likes to blame Terry Collins for Santana's downfall.
All that happened with Minnesota before he came to New York.
Right, but they blame that 137 pitch outing when he was pitching a no-hitter If you remember his second year with the Mets or whatever, and he was never the same pitcher after that. But some guys do get burned out. They don't run anybody into the ground today. If you're telling me guys are getting run into the ground pitching 100 pitches a game, then the game's changed way too much. And again, Alan, you can blame New York, but your guys signed him. They knew what they were signing.
I know, Alan. I kept telling you that's not the best fit for
from the beginning. And listen, this is not to take anything away. And Alan and I had this discussion. The Rangers are playing great baseball. And this may not affect them this year, but the money will affect them somewhere down the line where they can't get a guy that they need because they can't go over the cap. So
and Alan, just think about this. Their power rankings right now, they're in the top 10, right? Number 3 or 4 or something like that.
I got the second best record in baseball.
Yeah, I know, but they still
No, I know. I think they're 4 or 5. I think
I'm saying they're in the top 10. But imagine if you didn't sign deGrom and you would have had an opportunity signing 3 more players.
Exactly. Great point. Pitchers, because pitching will again. You need bullpen help. By the way, you need some guys who've caused.
That's why they're not in the. That's why they're in the top 10 and not number 1 or 2.
I know, Alan. Let's see what's he say. His final year just turned into a club option, so they can release him. Well, that's still 3 years at whatever.
You still got to sit on him while he's injured.
And again, all I'm saying is your GM's done a great job. That team has had a great turnaround. Bruce Bochy was the key.
That was the best signing the Rangers had.
The key, exactly. And some guys have stepped up that I was ripping a lot last year, and I said they were not, they weren't complete players. The offense is better. I do think the pitching will be a problem down the road. This team's probably good enough to make playoffs. I've changed my tune here. I've seen enough to change my tune a little.
Right. So let's back it up.
Well, let me just finish my thought. Okay. The fact that the GM's done such a great job in the offseason getting this team to where they are, including hiring Bochy, does not mean this wasn't a huge mistake on his part, right? Both things can be true.
Right.
So good.
So here's the thing. And right now, they've only played about 62 games. They still got 60 more to go, right? Something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as far as the Rangers are concerned, they've been playing great. They have a little bit of problems in the bullpen, but Sports Not, which is one of the sites that I look at different situations and information and get stats from, because they have less, they're not backed up by a lot of these other media sites. They have them ranked. They have the Rangers ranked at number 2. And that's because they're scoring about 10+ runs a game, which is fine. I get that. But they have Tampa as number 1, which Tampa's deservedly number 1. They've had good hitting situations, decent pitching. And then at 3, they have the Dodgers. I'm only going to name the top 5. 4 Astros, and then the Braves, who just beat the Mets at 5.
I would drop the Dodgers out of that 5.
Okay, so if you drop the Dodgers, then you move who there? You move the Astros?
I like the others. I'm okay with the others. And, the order is not that important if I want to go top 5. The other one I would throw in there at the moment would probably be Jesus.
The Astros.
I could say the Diamondbacks, to be honest with you.
So so let me finish the list. So that was
up to today, not potentially what
right. No,
just
right. Just power rankings for up to now. So now, so after the Braves, they have Baltimore Orioles at 6.
I might put the Orioles in there too. By the way, I might put them in the top 5.
They have Arizona at 7. They have New York at 8. The Yankees, not the Mets. They have the Twins at 9, and then we stop at 10, which is Toronto. All right, so
I'll agree with. I like Alan's. I think this is going to be a great series. Actually, you're right. Starting today, the Dodgers. To me, I agree. Lower half of the top 10 for the Dodgers, and I do like the Diamondbacks better right now. I said before the year, this was a team on the rise. I thought they'd finish in the mid-80s, miss the playoffs, and next year be a serious contender. But they're a year ahead of where I thought they were, at least up till now.
Yeah, so my only right now, I think that Toronto hasn't done themselves any favors in the last 2 weeks.
You said Toronto was 10 in that ranking?
Yeah, man. I feel like they can fall in a little bit more.
Now, they've played better baseball the last couple of weeks. I will not disagree with that. But, this team is still underperformed up until now.
Yeah, man. And well, the beginning of the season, they did great, right? The first 10 games.
Yeah.
They're doing great. And then they just kind of like plateaued. So, I don't know. Like, again, people, this is not a marathon. I mean, this is not a
sprint.
This is a marathon, not just like a quick race, So 60 games. I mean,
you get almost a third of the season to go here.
Let's start with the Yankees. Speaking about the Yankees,
I should say
the injury to Judge is
it's huge. I think it's worse than what they're saying. I think he broke his toe. They're saying he didn't. I think he might have broken his toe. And if he's out for an extended period of time, this team's in trouble.
Yeah, and then their pitching hasn't been up to par.
No.
I don't know. Can they stay in the top 10 while Judge is sitting out? That's a question I have as a fan, right?
Somebody's got to step up, right? Stanton's got to step up. He's back from the disabled list. Right. So Torres to me has to play better. Rizzo's got to be what he's been the first couple of months.
Kudos IKF. IKF is playing well.
IKF is playing, look, and he's never going to be a superstar. He's never going to really carry a team with his bat, but he plays everywhere. He's played a decent center field. I was a little leery of this transition to the outfield, but he's played well. And some of the kids, Volpe's got to take it to another level as we move forward. And they just brought back Cabrera, who they sent to the minors for only a couple of days. He's got to be the player he was last year if this team's going to stay alive.
So here's the thing. Because you talk about leadership and just Judge presence in the lineup on the field and hitting wise, they're going to miss a ton because I think he was carrying more than his fair share. And his energy, and even when he hits a home run, the at home, the crowd just goes crazy. When they call his name, the crowd goes crazy. So, the young kids now have to step it up, and they have to play not just like us watching their potential. They have to play out, like you said. They have to step it into another gear, and they got to be the Yankees because they're no longer the kids. They got to be the Yankees, and until they do that, that's where the questions are going to come in, and that's going to be difficult, I think.
I really think if Judge is out an extended period of time, and again, to be clear, we don't know that yet. This is just an assumption on my part. I'm kind of reading between the lines the way I've watched the Yankees report these types of things before. This could be an extended thing, and I hope it's not. I wouldn't be shocked to see Peraza back up soon, too, because he's been tearing it up in AAA. Right. They got to find a place to play him. Third base, second base. I don't know what the deal's going to be, but he may be back in the majors. And as you said, these kids have got to now take the reins and really lead.
Yeah. Now, again, Stanton might be back, but Stanton also strikes out a lot. So,
without doubt,
that's gonna give you more ulcers than necessary because you need a big bat. So, which Judge is a better bat in the lineup than Stanton. But we'll see what's going to happen. So.
Allen's top 10. I'm not putting Pittsburgh in the top 10. Sorry. Not in a million years. I know they've played better recently, but this team at the end of the year, if they finish 500, they'll have had a good year.
Yeah. So
Miami as well. I can't put Miami there either. I mean, they got great pitching. They still don't score enough runs. Raza's going to make his. I love to talk about him making a run at 400 here. The first week in June. Can we wait till August before we talk about that, please?
There was a couple players that have done that before in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then they just kind of fell off the map.
Well, again, I'm okay with this list except for those two, and I probably would rank Atlanta ahead of Texas and Baltimore myself. Atlanta's a really, really solid team. That's just my take. You can put them in any order, and it doesn't matter till come playoff time. But
so hop and skip a step on a couple of subways. You head down to the Messi Mets and what's going on in that situation. I feel like it's that big of a situation. But
problem is they've lost 6 in a row after getting playing well against Toronto. They've lost 6 in a row. They proved again. To me, the biggest thing about this, everybody's going to have these peaks and valleys. I think they're right about where the Phillies and the Braves were last year at this point.
Right.
It doesn't feel like, I always thought the Braves would catch fire last year. The Mets can't beat the Braves. That's the biggest problem that they have right now. They got the psychological thing, and maybe it's a talent thing. They just can't beat the Braves.
Well, I think it's the pitching that's not helping the Mets, and then the hitting's not helping the Mets when the pitching's on. So they're not balanced, and that's the problem. And to me, I was never a big fan of Buck coming in, but he's done what he's done. He was manager of the year, but now he's got to prove that manager of the year actually means something. I think he overthinks the game and think he overanalyzes some things. I'm not sure if he's using the analytics more than he needs to, but I feel like this pitching staff right now should just go 5 innings, and then they need a couple. The Mets have lost a few pitchers from their bullpen anyway, which I think they should.
Well, the bullpen's been a strength on this team in my mind. Most of the bullpen.
Well, they've given up runs when they they were in the lead. So,
I think overall, if I'm looking for strengths on this team, which you got to look hard. And listen, the bullpen's been a plus compared to some other parts of this team. Going back to your Buck comments, I love Buck Showalter, right? But I will tell you that Buck has got to stop relying on his guys again. We talk about this. He's a lot like Thibodeau in that way. You can't keep rolling out.
I'm not going to say I told you so, but I'm just going to
you can't keep rolling out Lindor in the 3rd spot when he's not going to hit. You can't do it. You've got to move guys around this lineup to get it producing. There's still a lot of talent on this team. Yeah, there's no reason this team can't come back and at least be a wild card contender, and that's all that matters is getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, because here's the thing: Marte's not hitting, and that's the negative. Nimmo has been okay, but his average is still kind of low for being in the spot that he's in. As far as
I think Nimmo's been a plus on this team, though. I think
McNeil's been up and down as well. Right now, the hitting hasn't been where it needs to be, that's been an issue with the Mets for a long time. I've always stated that. But then again, this is baseball, so then it takes sometimes a while. But 60 games, man. I don't know.
They need some reinforcements in the outfield, as you just touched on. Probably the starting pitching, but the problem is, I don't see it in the minors for those guys where they can bring somebody up and plug them in, like the Yankees might be able to, and some other teams might be able to. In the trade market, I got a feeling it's going to be a little light because so many teams are going to think they're in the running for the wild card that you're not going to see a ton of trades. I don't think.
Would you move Vogelback? Because he's one of the biggest problems at DH.
Vogelback? Well, who are you going to trade him to?
You're not trading him. You don't have to always trade him. You can move him down to the minors and just slowly get him out of contract.
To me, probably what they ought to do is they put similar to what we talked about the Yankees, is put this season in the hands of some of the kids. Play Batty every day. Play what's the other kid's name? Starts with a V. The kid they just brought up a couple weeks ago. He's played up and down. Not playing every day. But I'm saying the name wrong. I know I am. Hang on, let me take a look here. I'll give you his name.
The shortstop, the second place.
He's one of their top prospects.
Yeah,
Vientos.
Vientos, yeah.
Yeah, put him at DH every day. Him and Batty can play third base and DH, in a rotation. And
yeah, I just don't understand why Vogelback's still up there. If they've been having issues with him, No, I'm not like. If you see him play every day, as far as a DH, he takes a lot of balls. He's not bad. The problem is he's not hitting either. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the problem. This team's biggest problem is not hitting. By the way, Alvarez needs to play more than Navarez too. Alvarez is playing very well, and he's played better defensively this last month. And he's not going to cover off the baseball right now. Had a couple home runs again yesterday, I believe. He needs to play the majority of the time behind the plate.
So you wrap up. I mean, Verlander didn't have a good outing yesterday, which isn't good. I mean, I don't know. It's just like It's almost like a puzzle that's missing pieces, and you complete the puzzle, but there's like 5 little pieces missing, and you're like, what happened? When did these puzzle pieces go wrong?
Yeah, I know. It's again, it's not.
But but that's baseball. That's the beauty of baseball. If you're not a fan, you don't understand baseball. That's one of the beauties, right? Like,
yeah, I agree.
they could catch fire, and they could be the Phillies. Last year, the Phillies weren't even in it at this time.
Yeah, but you know what? They had a spark because they had they fired their manager and brought in Rob Thompson, who was just the right tonic. The Mets aren't firing Buck. They don't have a guy to bring up from the minors to really supply that big, burst.
I
don't think they're going to be able to make a trade to do it either. So what's going to give them that spark? I don't know.
I think, to be honest with you, they do have a player down there that's hot. And he's been hot for the last 2 years. He just need to come up and play already, and that's Mauricio. The problem is that Lindor is in that spot.
He needs a position, right? I mean, where are you going to play him?
So
you're not sitting Lindor. It's not happening. You can, maybe spot rest him here and there and spot start the kid.
You move Baby down or Vientos down and bring him up. He can play third. He's an infielder.
Well, if he can play third, yeah. I mean,
he's not. That's not his. He's a he's a shortstop / second baseman. That's his hot spot.
Listen, for all Lindor's problems, I'll give him credit. For all his problems at the plate, it hasn't affected him in the field a lot. He's still a plus shortstop.
He's a stalwart defender. That's not a problem. His problem has been having that consistent bat.
Agreed. Well, we'll see what happens. There'll be lots to talk about, and I'll talk about all of this more later on the MLB update. What do we got here before I move on? Mets are 4th right now. Anything can still happen. I agree. Look at this. They're just not. They need a spark, and I don't know where it's coming from. I want to give you a chance to kind of shine today because there's big news in the world of soccer.
Yeah.
Lionel Messi to the MSL, the Miami. Is this a done deal, by the way?
Yeah, it's MLS.
What'd I say?
MSL.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I'll tell you one thing. That's what he says he wants done, so I think that's going to work out. The comps, he's getting money from ownership, from Apple contract, and from other endorsements outside of actually being on the field. That's a nice little, contractual situation for him, because you have to pay it out because that's what his, that's what his requirement is to get a player like that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that he should have done 2 years ago, maybe. As far as him being on the field, he's going to bring in sales. He's the best soccer player in the world. He showed that at the World Cup, but he's also one of the oldest best soccer players in the world. And MLS is young. It's got starting to get some stability. Some of these players are showing a little bit more durability, the younger players. The MLS did something a few years back with having 18-year-olds coming in and playing who didn't want to play in college. I feel like they should stay with that track. Them going back and getting some of these players they brought in international wise. It's good because they bring these guys to the States, but it's bad because they bring these guys to the States after they peaked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Beckham's a great example of that. He was not the player he was when he got.
Even Zidane, who not Zidane.
Zava.
Ivanovic. Yeah. So he's have you looked him up? Like I told you to.
I did.
Yeah. So even Ivanovic, he's great. He's a great player, but again, peaked. And in the MLS for LA, for the team he played for, he's done well, but he did well. But I mean, again, those are just ticket sales, and there's no consistency in that. And so, I'm more on the development side. Try to develop these younger guys. Try to build the minor league system, the second tier system better, make that better, and because the problem is that these older players they cost more money, and right now MLS.
I get that, but you've got to have some marquee players to be able to. You have to have a TV contract to be able to compete, and if you want to be a major sport in this country, I mean, the NHL still struggles with this. Still, trying to get really good TV contracts. And if the MLS is going to get to that, anywhere close to that status, they need a major TV contract. I don't know what they're on now. I think he has a contract with them, I think. But
so I think the biggest thing that they're trying to do, that they've been doing like since their inception, is like the grassroots is very important, because the idea of the kids playing soccer in other countries compared to this country is totally different. In other countries, when the kids grew up playing soccer, they were great. They were on the national team, right? In this country, you could be the best soccer player in the state of Florida, but if your family don't have the funds to send you to these huge tournaments, then you're not going to be on the team. So it's slowly turning out to be the latter part, right? Like if you're good, you're going to be on the team no matter what happens. We'll find a way for you to stay on that team, and that's where the grassroots program is. But when you have the development program, you have to keep at it, and you have to put money into it. When you have this other player who has millions of dollars already in endorsements, just alone in endorsements, not even have to touch the soccer field, and then you still have to give him more money, and that takes away from the development program that you have going on, right? And that takes, then again, like you said, it's like signing Jacob deGrom. Like you signed that one guy, but you could have signed 3 or 4 players. You know, yeah, he's marquee, yeah, he sells jerseys, but I mean,
isn't that again? That goes against what I say. I often say it, like you just said about deGrom, but in a sport that's still in its infancy and trying to grow, isn't the marquee player more important now to get the cat? You need the casual fan. If you don't have the casual fan, you don't make it.
Yeah, but the thing with the MLS is that their whole concept and ideology was the grassroots and making sure that your hometown has a soccer team, that your hometown has is supporting a soccer team and has a club that you can support, that you don't have to, if you don't live like, you know, if you're in Hartford, you got to come to see an MLS game in New York or New Jersey, right?
Right.
It's Hartford currently right now. They have a soccer club, but it's not in the MLS right now, right? So eventually they'll bring him into MLS. So they're creating a European international type of ideology, and then they have that going for them. Where, you know, even if you look at Austin has a soccer team now, that's right now provided, you know, by you have McConaughey supporting it, right? And it's providing a lot of opportunity in Texas. It's not Dallas, but it's Austin. So like, you know, so, and the people from Austin are excited and they fall in it. And the same thing with Nashville. Nashville has a team. The people there are excited. They built a stadium. It's great. And they have players that are coming in and out. You know, there's enough players in soccer because soccer is worldwide, you know, so they're bringing in some, not like you said, not the best players, but they're bringing in a lot of good players. So now the idea is you brought in Messi. So now it's kind of, you're going back on what you were, you know, what was your strength. Now you're going back to what you did when you first started soccer, was trying to sign all these guys, you know, who have already peaked. And so the quality of soccer kind of just goes from development, which is, you know, a faster pace, to a slower pace, to, you know, right now MLS has a decent type of game. It's not the best in the world, but it's definitely not the worst.
Yeah.
So, you know, what does Messi provide? What is Messi going to provide to the game?
Yeah.
Right. Right. You're right. He's going to sell tickets, but what is he going to bring to the overall aspect of being on the field?
Yeah. Do you see this league ever getting into the major league level? I mean, we call it Major League Soccer. I get it, but it's not MLB. It's not NFL.
Can they compete against the bigger dogs in Europe? Is what you're saying?
Yeah. Can they compete with the sports here? Is my point. They got to compete with MLB all summer long. They've got to, you know. Again,
those are two different type of audiences.
That's
right now. If you're looking at the demographics, it's all about demographics. And
is there an audience for this here?
Of course, it's an audience, but your problem is it your audience, right? I think that's what you're looking. The demographics shows that the immigration levels of different people coming from around the world, and they're the ones that supporting soccer because that's what they're used to watching. So you're looking at the Asian population, they watch soccer. You're looking at the Arab countries that come in, refugees, they watch soccer. In fact, African refugees, they watch soccer. So yes, it's going to be supported. The question in what you're saying and what MLS has a problem with is like the cachet. Who are the players coming in and who are the players going out? And that's right now it's just on the coming up, right? Stadiums are being built left and right for soccer, so you don't have to question whether it's going to compete with all the major leagues because it's soccer at the end of the day. And we have the World Cup coming up pretty soon too. So,
look at it, and I tend to be just a fair weather fan. When the World Cup comes around, I pay attention to soccer. Otherwise, I kind of rip.
Come with me. I'll be in the stadium in New Jersey, New York.
I'm trying to give it a better chance here. So, and we'll talk more about that as we go on. And Alan, by the way, if you're still with me, Alan, I know you had a couple questions about Navalny and whatnot. Tune in at 3 if you can for the MLB update, because I'd love to converse with you about the Rangers a little bit more in depth on that show if you're around. So tune in. And guys, watch. I haven't done a vlog in a while, but I'm going to have one really good one about
John Morant,
about the PGA Golf Tour. PGA. And it won't be fun. It won't be pretty. Carlos, thank you. Everybody, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Happy Friday, people.
And we'll catch you later with Dan Harris on Let's Talk New York Sports. And I'll have the MLB update later today, too. So we'll talk to you later. Have a great morning.